just believe in the power of healing and restoration. And I know that if we can just come together and speak about the hard things, we can finally begin to heal. So, this is where we heal.
Welcome to another episode of This Is Where We Heal. I am your host, Ashley Taylor-Maland, and today my guest is Kathryn Tague. Kathryn is, and I'm going to read this because it is a beautiful description of who this wonderful woman is, and I want to make sure I get everything. But Kathryn is a life and business coach, a healer, a teacher. She's a guide to women walking through their spiritual awakenings. Whew, we need that, Lord knows, and their healing journeys. She helps them step fully into their personal power and sovereignty, while also showing them how to balance their lives and grow businesses along with children and relationships. And we all know how challenging that can be. She is a solo homeschooling mom to 4 girls and a community builder in every sense of the word. She's a writer, an editor, a publisher, a founder, an owner of Connection to Soul, which we will talk about today, an influence in digital media, a co-founder of Spellbound Sisterhood, and a co-founder of She Reigns. Welcome today to the show, Kathryn, and thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
I am so excited to have you here. I talk about my coach, Jamie, often on my show, and so anytime that she recommends someone to me, I always know that there's something incredible about them because she is particular with, who she associates with, and
Yes.
I love that about her. Very protective of her space.
Yes.
So I would love to know, there were so many things to talk about that you do. You are a multi-dimensional human, and I love that about you because I think that women are learning more and more that they can do everything, not just one thing.
Yes.
Which I love about you, and the fact that you can be a full-time mother and homeschool, but also help other women find themselves and heal and navigate their spiritual journeys and also run businesses and also be mothers and wives and girlfriends and all these things. I just think it's incredible because we need to know and learn that we're capable of more than just one thing.
Yes.
And you embody that and you help facilitate that for other women. And so my first question is, how did you get started? And what did that look like at your life at that time?
Get started with which part? Let me ask that.
Obviously, you're a mother. So
Yes.
did your journey into coaching women start before becoming a mother
Oh,
or
no.
after?
No. I started my healing journey when I found out I was pregnant with my oldest daughter.
Oh.
And she just turned 14 in January. And I knew when I found out I was going to be a mom, I knew that there were things I wanted to do differently, right? And then when I found out I was having a daughter, there were very specific experiences that I'd had growing up that I refused to repeat with her. And so I started consuming all of this content. Now, this was in 2010, 2011.
Mm-hmm.
So it was before personal development had become what it is and spirituality had become what it is. And so for people moving into that space now, there are so many resources available. Whereas for me, it was literally going to the library and finding books and following these breadcrumbs. But I knew, it was doing therapy and things like that. And then after she was born, her dad and I had decided that I would stay home and that we would homeschool. And these were the choices we were making. And I loved it for about the first 8 months.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, God,
yeah,
this cannot be all that there is.
Amen.
Right? But how can I do these things for my daughter that I know in my heart and my soul and my body are the right choices for her while still doing things that are fulfilling for me and align with my outer purpose, right? Because we all have multiple purposes. Yes, being a mom was part of my purpose or one of my purposes, but it wasn't the only one.
Wow.
And so I found an online magazine that I had been following for a while on social media, and they were hiring for the news editor.
Wow.
And I, 2:00 in the morning, up nursing a baby, and I shot a message off to the publisher, and I was like, I've never blogged. I don't know anything about social media, but I do have a background in political science, and I read constantly, and I have been a writer my whole life. And, if it's not as the news editor, do you have anything else? I'm a stay-at-home mom, and she and I had a couple conversations, and they brought me in. And then shortly after my second daughter was born, they had an opening for the editor-in-chief position. And they had approached me, and I had been at the magazine for a while at that point. Yeah. And we were growing. I was learning social media branding. I was helping with their social media. This is back before Facebook was what it is now.
Yeah.
Right? And they said, hey, we have this position that's open. Is it something you would be interested in? And I told them, I said, I can't dedicate the time that it would take to be the editor-in-chief.
Yeah.
What I can do, though, is I can be a part of a team. And so what we did is we had me and another woman, and then 2 men, and then our publisher. We created an executive editorial team. And so we each had different sections of the magazine that we managed, and editors underneath us and writers. And I took over all social media at that point, all of our forward-facing social media branding and content marketing, and just
That is incredible.
yeah.
I'm sitting here and I'm remembering that point in my parent journey with my daughter, where at first I thought the same, where I was like, oh, being at home is great, because then I can be like a full-time present mom. I can teach, all the things that you dream about, you know?
Right.
And I also remember like 4 months, 5 months, 6 months in, being like, I am devastatingly lonely.
Yes.
I am devastatingly tired.
Yes.
I feel devastatingly like empty, but also grateful at the same time. And I
Right.
didn't know what to do with that.
Yeah.
But I also I don't know that I ever even had the confidence to think, oh, there's more at that point in my life. And I'm thinking of all the women that are watching this that have felt that way, like motherhood didn't fulfill them quite the way they thought it would, but maybe haven't even realized that they can do something else. And so it's like, how
And
did you
still
get that
be a mother.
courage? Like,
I'm not sure, but I remember thinking to myself, like, long term, what am I building for her?
yeah,
What am I showing her?
yeah,
Right? And that's not to say that being a stay-at-home mom can't be fulfilling.
right,
Or that it isn't fulfilling for other. Like, I don't want to take away from that.
right,
But it wasn't fulfilling for me.
right.
Right?
And there's
And
guilt and shame in that
there's
too.
so much guilt and shame. I had to work through so much guilt and shame around that, because, like, what do you mean being a mom isn't fulfilling enough?
Yeah.
And really what it came down to for me was I did not want to put that pressure on my kids.
Yeah.
Right? I actually wrote about this for Scary Mommy. I had to think for a minute. I wrote an article for Scary Mommy about how my children are not the center of my world. They're not supposed to be.
Right.
They're going to get up and they're going to move away.
Yeah.
Like, you have to build yourself for yourself. And got completely demolished
What?
in the comments. Oh, it was horrible. It was horrible.
Wow.
Because women felt like I was saying that my children aren't important to me, or that they aren't the center of my universe. And when they're teeny tiny babies, of course they're the center of your world.
Of course.
But my teeny tiny baby is now 14.
Yeah.
And her sister is 11.
Yeah.
And her little sisters are going to be 7 in March. You know what I mean? And they are my world.
Yeah.
But they're not the center.
Yeah. And
of
they
my
also
world.
have to figure out their place in the world outside
Yeah.
of you.
Yeah. And if I make them the center of everything I do, that feels very martyrish. Like, you know, the stereotype of the mom where it's like her kids grow up and they move out, and all of a sudden she's like, I don't know who I am anymore.
Yeah. Well, and same for them.
Right.
If you think about it, they go off to college and they've been the center of someone's entire world their entire life, and now they're not.
Yes.
And it's like this rude awakening. I felt
Yes.
that way actually, in a weird
Yes.
way. I love my dad dearly, but he was quite the controller. You
Yes.
know, he liked to be in control of my life and everything I was doing. And so going out into the world, you were like, now what? Nobody thinks I'm nearly as important as he did, right?
Right. And it is a control thing though, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a security thing. And so in centering myself in my world, not in a selfish way,
Yeah.
but in a way that was healthy, but prioritized me, then I could give more to them. Right?
Yeah.
I'm a better mom because I have things outside of my children that I'm passionate about, because I have things outside of my children that are my purpose. I'm a better partner because I have things outside of him that are mine. Right? And we get to come back together every single time, both as a couple and as parents, and then with our children. But the reality is, you see so many kids who grow up and leave home and they are angry at their moms. Oh, she controlled everything.
Yep.
My mom is so controlling. She has unrealistic expectations, but she did that because she loved you.
Yeah.
But that pressure, like, why are we putting that pressure on our kids?
I know. I think most people don't even realize they're doing it.
Yeah.
They're like trying to fill a void for themselves.
Yeah.
And centering their children does that for them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, again, going back to like when the birds leave the nest and they're like, oh no, who am I now? You know, it's so true.
But also, let's be aware of how we're showing up for our kids.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about, so your healing journey started before that, but you healed obviously through the process of your children.
Mm-hmm.
How did you learn the difference between, you said, centering yourself, but not in a selfish way, like, right? Like, what is the difference? What is the difference between selfishness and centering yourself so that you show up better in the world for everyone?
So the way that I look at it, and it could be different for other people, but the way I look at it in my life and the way I teach it to my clients is that being self-centric instead of self-centered, right? Meaning you make the decisions that are right for you, but you take other people into consideration.
That's good.
Because when you're selfish, when you're self-centered, you don't take anyone else into consideration.
That's good.
So being self-centric is that I'm still going to do what's right for me, but I'm going to consider the kids. I'm going to consider Thomas. I'm going to consider my clients. I'm going to consider my community. I'm going to consider the other people that it affects.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to be intentional with that choice. Now, does that mean that I don't sometimes screw up and hurt people's feelings or disappoint people? Of course. But even in that space, I can look at how that other person feels based on the choices I made, and I can own that. And I can say, you know what? You're right. I did say XYZ. I wasn't able to make that happen, and I'm very, very sorry.
Yeah.
And I can own it.
Yeah.
Because when you own it, you're no longer the victim in the situation.
Right. That's so good.
And you're not victimizing anyone else.
Right. So good.
But then the line is, don't own what's not yours.
Yeah. And that's hard.
It is hard.
It's really hard when you want to be accountable. It's really hard when you are considering other people.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. It's a balance though, because you can very easily slide into sort of that victim martyr space.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, I'm considering everyone else around me. And I'm not taking care of myself. Which is another thing that they do to moms a lot, right?
Yeah.
Like the martyr mother.
Yeah.
Oh, I have to do this and I have to do that. And I just don't have time to take care of them. And I've been there.
Yeah.
Like, you know, oh, I have 97 things and the kids have this and the kids have that. And I just can't. But can you?
Right.
You just can't what? I just don't have time. That's a choice. It's a choice.
It is.
You know, people ask all the time, like, how do you do it? I don't know how you do it. I have help.
Yeah, that's good too.
I have help. I have a nanny who is phenomenal.
I love
She
that.
is amazing. I tell the girls, no, we don't do a lot of extracurricular activities. The older girls
Mm.
especially are very self-sufficient when it comes to their education. And that doesn't mean that, we've homeschooled since day one, so they understand how it
Right,
works. It doesn't
right.
mean I don't check in and I have access to the parent portals and things.
Right, right.
But they're capable of doing that themselves.
So good though.
When they want to go out and do things or spend time with friends, I look at what's the whole family doing. We're juggling 7 children and 2
7?
adults. 7.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, 7 between the 2 of us.
So that is your partner now. So
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. But there are times where, it's like, but I really wanted to do X, Y, Z. I understand that.
Yeah.
I understand that. But it just doesn't fit in our schedule this week.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's a lot of different layers to it. But really, I think, one, it's about intentionality. You have to be truly intentional. It is about self-awareness.
Yeah.
But it's also about what we were talking about before we started recording. Like, what do you want? And do you believe that you're capable of calling that into your life?
Oof. That's good.
Yeah.
I can speak for this, and I know you have a story too. As a victim, I did a lot of self-sacrificing in my life.
Yeah.
And especially in relationships.
Yeah.
Which led me down the paths of being in abusive and toxic relationships because it was almost like I was martyring my own sanity, my own health, my own well-being for the sake of loving someone else. And I know a lot of women that are in abusive relationships struggle with that.
Yeah.
And they do that.
Yeah.
And it's hard to, when you get so accustomed to that pattern of living where it's always about everyone first, it is really hard to come out of that and not feel self-centered in putting yourself first.
Yeah. Well, and we're even before the abusive relationship or relationships, right? Because for most of us, it's more than one, right?
Yes,
it
exactly.
certainly was for me.
Yeah.
That programming is put into us as children, right? So I can remember being told, you're being selfish. Or for someone like me who grew up in a very religious household, it was always we put others before ourselves, right? And so we're taught that, especially as girls.
Yeah. In particular, as girls.
We are taught to put others before ourselves because it's what good girls do, or it's what godly girls do, or whatever story that goes along behind it. But at its core, and then it's modeled for us, by our mothers and our grandmothers and our aunts, and right,
who have never known how to break that chain,
right?
Yeah.
And so we think that by saying no, by creating a boundary, by standing firmly in our truth, that we're doing something wrong,
right?
And that leads to abusive relationships.
Exactly.
And we want to look at women who are in abusive relationships or have come out of them and say, well, how did that happen?
Yeah. I know. God, don't even get me started.
Would you like the psychological version? Right? Would you like the sociological version?
Yeah,
Would you like the spiritual version? Maybe the anthropological version, because it all plays a part.
Facts.
Right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter where it came from. What matters is, how do we stop it?
Yeah.
How do we teach our daughters?
Amen. Yes.
And how do we teach people that it's not just physical abuse? It's emotional abuse. It's mental abuse. It's financial abuse.
And it's even abuse to yourself by allowing it.
Yes, absolutely. I had to reach a point. 2 things happened. The first one being, I realized that there was nothing that he could do or say to me that was vicious enough to drown out what I was doing and saying to myself.
Oh, man.
I think it's Don Miguel Ruiz who says that we only allow as much abuse as we are willing to abuse ourselves.
Wow.
Yeah.
That hits really hard.
And the first time I read that, it floored me. I was like, ugh. So even then, all of that was a reflection of what I had in here
Yeah. So
that I
true.
couldn't even look at, right?
So true.
And the other piece is owning that you chose it.
Yeah.
You didn't choose the abuse, but you chose the partner who abused.
Yeah.
And you didn't choose to leave. That was really hard for me when I finally left the girl's dad. With 4 kids in the middle of a pandemic, which was terrifying, but I had reached the point where it was like, I just can't do this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
One of us is going to end up dead. One of us is going to end up dead. And I can't do this anymore. And then my coach and mentor, you know, we were looking at it together, and she was like, let's just walk down memory lane, because this isn't your first abusive relationship.
Right.
And what's the common denominator? And I was just like, oh,
Ouch.
okay. So maybe my picker's broken. And she's like, is that it? Or is it that you continuously choose to stay, right? So we teach people how to treat us. We teach people how to treat us based on how we treat ourselves.
And how long we allow it.
Yeah. And if you keep showing up for it, the only thing you need to own may be that you kept showing up for it, but you have to own that you kept showing up for it.
Amen. I literally, that's one of the biggest realizations I had in my own journey. It was even after like my marriage, of realizing I'm still choosing toxic men.
Yeah.
And I thought I was in a better place.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me realize, okay, maybe it's not all these toxic men out here that are the problem. They exist.
Yes.
There are abusive men. There are toxic men. But I still somehow end up being the one in relationship with them.
Right.
Which must mean the relationship I have with myself isn't too great.
Yes.
And I had to really sit in that hard truth of, okay, well, every relationship I have could potentially be this bad.
Yeah.
Until I decide I don't want that anymore.
But even more than I don't want that, I'm not going to show up for this anymore.
Yes.
You know, because I didn't want it.
Right.
You didn't want it.
Didn't want it. But I
you
kept allowing
showing up for it. Exactly.
I kept riding that wave into it, knowing I'm going to drown here, but
Yeah.
let's just keep going.
Because maybe next time it won't.
Yeah.
Maybe,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
and it's those maybes and those what ifs
Yeah.
that just keep us stuck.
So true. Oh,
And
my
then into the
gosh.
next one. And then, and it's like people are like, well, didn't you learn your lesson the first time? Well, apparently not.
Even if I did, I'm still not ready to practice it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
we
I'm
know
not ready.
better. We just haven't learned to do better yet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm not willing to look because it's so much easier to say he did this to me instead of saying I chose this.
Yeah.
And that was really triggering for me for
Yeah.
a really long time when my coach would say, but you chose that.
Yeah.
I didn't choose
Yep.
XYZ. I didn't choose that. I didn't choose for these things to happen to me when I was a child. I didn't choose for these things to happen to me in high school and college. I didn't choose that. No, but you walked through the front door.
Mm-hmm. And kept
You
it
were
open.
in the room. You kept coming back for more.
The house was on fire and you stayed.
And then I had that story, like so many of us have, that men are trash, right?
Yes. We all go through it, I think.
Men are trash. Men are trash. Well, I kept attracting men who were trash because I kept telling the universe that men were trash.
Yeah.
And if that's the story that you're telling, that men are trash or men are abusers or women are gold diggers or whatever the story is, the more you say that, the more the universe is going to give you reinforcement of that.
Facts.
You are going to find the confirmation bias that you're looking for.
Oh, that's a powerful thing to realize and hard thing to realize.
It's hard to break too.
It is hard to break.
Because
but
it
you're
is
so
a pattern.
Right. Yes, I notice that a lot in the space that I'm in with, opening up about domestic violence and sexual assault, is that I thank God every day because I have finally moved past the stage of hate. and past the stage of it's all men.
Mhm.
And that was a hard place to get out of.
Right.
Because for a while it's all consuming, and then it becomes all you see, and then it becomes all you hear. And it's out there. It is there. There's no denying it. But I couldn't find peace in myself for so long because I was so stuck in that loop of all men are bad and all men are abusive and all men are toxic. And I hadn't learned to look at myself yet, And I think a lot of women can relate to that.
Yeah. Well, and what it was for me is all men are trash, but I had so many amazing men in my life who stepped up, who stepped in, who leaned in, who were protectors, who really stepped in as sort of like pseudo uncles to the girls. If I needed help moving something, they'd come over and help. If I had a flat tire, I could call them. And these were not romantic relationships. Right. I made a really solid commitment to myself and to the girls when their dad and I split up that I was going to be single and celibate until I figured my shit out. And was for almost 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was the best choice I could make.
Yes.
But here I am saying men are trash, men are trash, men are trash. And I have this entire village of men who were boyfriends and husbands to some of my best friends. Yeah. They were friends in the networking community that we were a part of. Never once was there any attempt, like they all understood and supported what I was doing, and they just wanted to show up for the girls and I in a way that we needed them to. Yeah. So here I am telling the universe, men are trash, men are trash, men are trash. And every time I turn around, the universe is literally going, really, Kathryn?
Yeah.
Are they really?
Yeah.
Because there's no strings attached with these guys.
Yeah.
They just want to help you. They just want to support you. They just want to be your friend. And in my head, it's men are trash. And so that was kind of like, oh.
Feels wrong to say this now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it was, men are trash except my guys. My guys aren't trash. Everybody else is trash. And then that was okay for a little bit. And they were, even though they were kind of like, haha, yeah, we love you too. But really, but then it reached a point where it was like, okay, I think I'm ready to start. Because I'm like I pre-plan my pre-plan for a plan kind of thing.
Okay.
It's like, I think I'm ready to start thinking about what it would look like to date. I think I'm ready to start thinking about what I might want in a partner someday. Yeah. And like, before I could do any of that, I had to get over the men are trash conversation.
Yeah, you sure do. Yeah, God, you're not going to get blessed with something amazing if you don't believe it exists.
Yeah. And if you're not willing to do the work to become the person that amazing wants to be in a relationship with.
Yes, so good. So good and so true.
Because the question one of my best friends asked me was, okay, like we know what you're looking for in a man. That's clear. But are you the woman that he's looking for? And I was like, ugh. Yeah, no, even now. Definitely not. Yeah. Because I wasn't. I was still angry. I was doing my work, obviously. I was healing. I was doing all the things. But somewhere in the back of my head was still that little whisper, men are trash. Oh. And if I really wanted to call in my person, that couldn't be a thing.
Yeah. Especially the kind of man that you ended up with.
Yeah.
Which I want to talk about too. I want to talk about, and we'll get to it as well, but like you said, you spent 4 years on your own. Mm-hmm. You made that vow to yourself. Mm-hmm. What did that look like?
The girls were a big part of it. I did not want a revolving door of men in their life. Yeah. And I am a firm believer that the people we spend time with, they leave an energetic imprint on us. And the girls can pick that up. They're very sensitive to that. I don't drink alcohol. And that's something that for the girls, they've been very vocal about how comfortable it makes them feel and how happy they are that their parents don't drink, right? Because that is something that their dad does. Oh, okay. And they're very vocal about the fact that my mom and Thomas don't drink. There's no alcohol in our house. And they like that. And the being single and celibate piece was part of that, because alcohol is such a big part of the dating scene.
Yeah, for sure.
And I knew that eventually, when I was ready to get into a relationship, the person who was going to be in relationship with me was also going to be sober. It was that important to me.
Wow.
And not in the sense of, hey, I like you, but if you want to be with me, you have to quit drinking, but more, I won't date someone who isn't already sober.
Ooh, yeah, that's good.
It needs to be their choice. And it can't be because they want to be with me. It needs to be because that's what they chose, and then we're going to be a couple.
Amen.
I was not interested in having a sexual relationship with someone that I did not plan on spending the rest of my life with.
Yeah.
Clearly not a virgin. So it's not like I'm saving myself for marriage.
Nothing wrong with it, but
but I did not want the physical aspect of the relationship to take center stage.
Wow. That's
because
tough.
You never know what's going to happen. I believe that the physical relationship between partners is vital to the health of the relationship. However, it can't be the only piece that matters. And so I wanted to build friendship and intimacy and connection before the physical piece of the relationship ever came into play. And we did that.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It helped that he lived in Texas and I lived in Utah, and the bulk.
So how in the world did that happen?
That's a long story. I actually edited his book and published his book in 2019. He was married to his ex-wife at the time. We stayed connected. We had a lot of mutual connections. He is brilliant at business consulting, operations, and systems and processes and all the really nerdy back end brain stuff. I'm very the creative, right?
Yeah.
And he's very much, let's take your really beautiful idea that's floating around in the sky somewhere, and here we'll put it somewhere where it's actually a thing that can happen, right? And we stayed connected that way, and our friendship grew over time, and his marriage ended, and we just sort of evolved from there, which was
intense.
It was intense. I thought I was ready, and then had a massive identity crisis going into our relationship.
Please tell me about that, because please tell me about that.
It was such a mess.
Jamie, please tell me about that, because I feel the same way right now in my life.
I was so secure in being the single mom.
Yeah.
It was such a deep part of my identity at that point that when being in the relationship when we lived in different states was one thing. Right. We would travel, we would see each other at events. We have a lot of mutual clients, things like that. That was great. But then he was like, I'm ready for us to be a family. And he has 50-50 custody of his kids. And so we have them every other week. Mm-hmm. So he has to stay in Texas. And the girls and I were in Utah. And he was like, I want you and the girls to come here. And I was just like, wow.
No, that's not the plan I had.
Yeah, no, it's not the plan I had. We were just going to travel back and forth. We had a 6-bedroom house in Utah. We have a 5-bedroom house in Texas. We were just going to travel, and we'd take the kids with us, and it would be fine. And I homeschool the girls so we can come whenever. And that got really exhausting really fast.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And it was one of those situations where it was like, if we're going to move forward with this, we need to be in the same place.
Yeah.
And then it was like, I've provided for myself and my children solo for years. Mm-hmm. What do you mean I'm not the only boss in the house anymore? What do you mean that I can't be ultra independent? There's this whole narrative in the world right now about women surrendering to the masculine and blah, blah. And that's okay.
If that's what you
yes. But also that's real. Like there have definitely been areas where I have had to lean into surrender. But oh my gosh, I thought I was really good at surrender. I'd been surrendering for years. And then all of a sudden it was like, we're just going to take this to the whole next, and girl, things that I had looked at, owned, healed,
Yes.
packaged
Yes.
beautifully,
Yes.
and put down and walked away from.
Yes.
All of it just.
Yep. Like a firestorm.
Yes.
Just, all of it
Like,
out of nowhere. And you're like, what is all this?
Who am I if I'm in relationship with a man? And if I'm going to walk away from this life that I have built, this community that I've built, these businesses, my 2 business partners both live in Utah. You know, like the girls were settled there. I had so much peace and so much joy.
Yeah.
If I'm going to walk away from all of that for this man and these children who I had fallen in love with and the girls had fallen in love with, who am I? If I'm not the solo homeschooling, badass boss mom, traveling the world, doing women's retreats, speaking on stages, editing books, building businesses, and I'm now in partnership with a man, who am I?
And how?
Yeah. And how do I do this?
Yeah.
And some days it wasn't pretty. I mean, like, I was battling myself.
Yes.
And that internal battle spilled out. And thankfully, he is someone who he has weathered my storms very well. And vice versa, because there was a lot of identity in that for him.
Yeah, of course.
His ex-wife was a stay-at-home wife for 10, 11 years. Mm-hmm. He was the provider. Mm-hmm. He made the decisions. You know, his schedule was priority. You know, one of the things we really struggled with in the beginning is we both have very busy, thriving businesses. Mm-hmm. We're both used to working from home. Well, we moved into this house in Texas and it only had one office because most houses only have one office. Right. And like his stuff went in there and he can go in there and he can close the door and he can work all day. And I'm like, I make just as much money as you do, buddy.
Yeah, where's my office? Yeah. Gonna need an office space too.
Working from the kitchen table. Circa 2011. You know what I mean? Like, how did I end up back here?
Yeah.
You know, but then there was the whole schedule thing. Like, he would just schedule things and not talk to me about it.
Right, because that's what
I would just schedule things and not talk to him about it because we were used to being the only person who had a schedule who mattered.
Yeah.
Right? And then we'd have these conflicting things. And it's like, oh, but we've got all the kids today. And what about this? And the nanny's not coming. And oh my, and then, you know what I mean? So we had to learn how to communicate about things that we'd never communicated before.
Yeah.
You know, perfect example. We were moving out of Park City down into Sandy, which is a suburb of Salt Lake City. And I found this house that I was absolutely in love with. And it had this gorgeous backyard, but it was built in 1979, and the people who I was going to rent it from had remodeled it, and it was beautiful. But Thomas is a really large human being. He's 6'4", giant broad shoulders. For me and the girls, being small human beings, like, it was perfect for us. Right. But he was like, please don't do anything until I've seen it. And I'm like, this is the one I want. And he's like, and I'm like, I sent you pictures. This is it. This is the one I want. This is the one I want. And he was like, I'm not sure. And I was like, you want to know what? This is the one I want. So I went and I signed the lease. He didn't even see the house until we got the keys. And he was like, okay, whatever. And I said something later that week. And I was like, I want to sign another lease right away so we can lock it in for 2 years. And then I want to buy this house. And he was like, I don't want to buy this house. And I looked him dead in his eyes and I said, well, I'm grown and I make my own fucking money and you don't tell me what to do.
Oh.
That's not how you act if you want your person to be your partner.
Yeah.
And I realized in that moment, not only did I not know how to have a partner, I didn't know how to be a partner.
Oof.
And neither did he. And we got to start talking about what does that look like? Well, for me, him treating me like a partner meant you have conversations with me before you say yes to the ex-wife about things that the kids are doing.
Yeah.
Because we might have plans. Being a good partner to me means that you don't just assume that I'm the default parent because I have boobs and you don't. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
For
a lot of
me-
women do.
Yeah. You know, for me, treating him like a partner meant that, yes, I make my own money and I'm an adult and I can do what I want. But when it comes to things like signing a lease on a house that's going to connect both of us to a piece of property, I need to respect him enough to have a conversation with him first.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it wasn't just about learning to have a partner. It was learning to be a partner. And that was part of the identity thing, right? I was so used to no one telling me no because there was no one who could tell me no.
Yeah.
Because I was running businesses that brought in a very nice 6-figure income by myself.
Yeah.
And can't nobody tell me what to do.
I want to go back a little bit. I love this, by the way. This is really important. But I want to go back to the initial stages of how did you know it was different when you met him versus, because if you were like me and had a pattern of going into toxic relationships, there is like this a little bit of a barrier. Can I trust this person? Like there's always, you're a little bit more guarded. And I'm getting better. Like my heart is certainly way more open now to trusting and you know, accepting and receiving and things. But how did you know, or did you know that this looks different than it did before?
I'm going to answer your question with a question.
Okay.
Do you trust yourself?
Yeah.
If you trust yourself, then trusting the other person isn't a problem.
Oof.
So my question again is, do you actually trust yourself?
Yeah, I think I do.
Okay.
I know that's not a solid answer, but I do trust myself now not to stay
And that's the only thing that matters.
if it's not right.
Because you're never going to know. You're never going to know. Moving into a relationship, opening your heart up to someone is the ultimate unknown, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people are going to hurt us.
Yeah.
And they're going to disappoint us.
Yeah.
And they're going to make mistakes. But you've got you. You trust yourself. You know that you won't stay.
Yeah.
Now, when it gets hard is when your triggers get hit.
Yeah.
And you move into a space of, I'm going to run away. I'm going to run away. I'm going to run away. And you want to run away.
Yeah. That's me.
But you know that what you're running from isn't truth. You're running from past pain. You're running from past trauma. You are running from remembered trauma.
Yeah.
This man in front of you right now, and he's even said to me before, because it will happen. It doesn't happen anymore, but especially once the girls and I moved to Texas, my defense mechanism with my children is to put them in the car and leave.
Yeah.
And never once did he give a reason.
Right.
He wasn't punching holes in walls. He wasn't pushing me. He wasn't breaking things. He wasn't screaming in my face and cussing at me. But if we got into a confrontation, that's how I reacted to it, because that was my lived experience.
Uh-huh.
And so I would put the girls in the car and we'd sit in the driveway. And he'd text me and he'd say, are you ready to come inside yet? I'm not. We might go drive around the block. And he'd say, okay. He didn't try to stop me because he knew I had to work through that piece myself.
That's beautiful.
And then I would question it. Is me going back to this, me repeating that pattern? It's not, because he's not that man. And they'll show you. They'll show you. But when you're in that instance and you're panicking and your body is screaming at you, we know what comes next. Run.
Yes.
Run.
Yes.
Run.
Yeah.
You have to stop. You have to take a deep breath and you have to go, okay. Is this remembered pain? Is this remembered trauma? Or is this right now? And step outside of yourself and observe what's happening. Because chances are, especially who you are now, it's not that.
Yeah.
It's this. This can be addressed. This may not be perfect, but this is not that.
Oh, that's so good.
And you just keep reminding yourself and communicate openly.
Yeah.
Not when you're in the midst of a battle, but I would tell him, when XYZ happens, it triggers me.
Yeah.
And my triggers are mine. It's not your job to manage my triggers. I'm not telling you so that you never do it again. I'm telling it so that you understand that me getting in the car and sitting in the driveway is what I need to do so that I can feel safe in here so I can come back inside and we can resolve this.
Yeah.
Because when XYZ happens, my defense mechanism is to pack up myself and the girls and leave.
Yeah. That's so real.
Not because I want to, but because that's
Right.
the only way I know
you
how
don't
to
want
keep us
to,
safe.
But yeah.
I
have like this really deep-seated wound of abandonment from childhood and many other relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in such a good place in my life now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so much healthier.
Mm-hmm.
I would be a way better partner than I ever could have been before, because I am a lot more grounded and peaceful and happy and content. But I'm noticing in this new fresh dating thing that I'm doing, that trigger of abandonment coming up a lot, of just, this person's going to leave. I got to go. I got to cut this off. I got to end this. It's like I'm constantly trying to run away.
Yeah.
Because of the uncertainty and the unknowns.
Yeah.
And in uncertainty and unknowns, I am used to someone disappearing.
Yep.
And it has been so hard and I thank God for my coach, Jamie. She's not just my coach, she's my therapist. She's my journal. She's everything. But to bring me back to the reality of, just because it feels similar doesn't mean it's the same. Like, every person is different. And you are in a better place and you are in a safer space for yourself. But it is so hard, that instinct to just be like, I'm done. I'm out. This is too scary. This is too unknown. There's too many variables going on here and I don't know how to sit with it.
Yeah.
It hurts. It sucks. And it's making me anxious. And it's so hard to not want to just like,
it's okay to want to do it, but you'll never heal that if you do it. Does that make sense? The other thing I want to bring to you, because abandonment was a big one for me. We find a lot that in women who stay in toxic and abusive relationships, abandonment is a really early, really deep wound.
Yeah.
We think that we can keep whoever left us that first wound if we stay, right? If we can convince them to love us enough. Yeah. One of my deepest was that I was easily discarded. Our mom left when I was very, very young. And it does something to children, but I think especially to girls when their mom leaves them behind, right? Yeah. And my whole life, I had this story that I was easy to leave, right? And so I would make myself hard to leave, right? So I would do everything for everyone around me so that they couldn't leave because they needed me, right? But in reality, I needed them to stay to prove to myself that I was worthy of staying for. What I had to begin to understand is that even when people leave, it doesn't have anything to do with me. That's them. And if I stay, because what we do is we self-abandon, right? You self-abandon to keep someone in your life. I self-abandon to keep people in my life. But what you're teaching yourself is that you're not worthy of staying. It's in your subconscious, right? So like, it never doesn't hurt. So it's always going to hurt when people leave you. but I'm never going to abandon myself again. So whoever goes and whoever stays, even if it's Thomas, even if it's my kids, whoever goes, that's their choice. And it doesn't change the fact that I'm never going to abandon myself.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if anybody else has got me, because I've got me.
Amen.
You've got you.
Yeah.
So whether he stays or whether he goes, yes, it's going to hurt, and it's supposed to hurt because you opened your heart to them.
Yeah.
But you've got you, so you can never be abandoned again. Yeah.
That's so true.
And there's so many layers to it. I struggled with letting another person parent my children.
Yeah.
That was real hard, especially the
bet.
first time he had to like discipline them. Because there was that part of me that was like, oh, I have someone who can help me do this. And there was other part of me like, I don't know who you think you're
How
talking to
dare
like
you?
that, but not my children. You got life confused, friends. You only get to be their stepdad when you're the fun stepdad. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
It's complicated when there are exes involved,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then extended family. Like it's a whole other layer, and then for he and I both being public figures, there's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes that nobody knows anything about. And so one minute everybody thinks I'm this single mom and he's married, and then our relationship comes out, and what people don't understand is there was a long stretch of time in there where they were splitting up and getting divorced. Our relationship was beginning, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But for people on the internet, and I'm sure you experienced this as well, it looked like a very short period of time to them. And so then it's, this happened and that happened. And then you get the kids involved, and you know what I mean? It's just, and if you don't trust yourself, if you don't promise yourself that you're never going to abandon yourself again, and then you stand in that, all of that out there is going to fuck everything up that you've got going on in here.
Yeah. That's so true. And I do feel that way now. And I think a lot of women that have been in kind of this community with me are getting there too, finally, where you're like, I know I'm good now. I am good, and I'm content, and I'm whole, and I like my life, and I like me. I really like me now. And I couldn't have said that a year and a half ago. Like, I didn't like myself, let alone love myself, but I really like myself now, and I think I'm a good thing. And I know that I have a good life, and that I'll have a good life. And so it's like I know all of that, and I know that that can also coexist with the triggers still coming up.
Yeah.
The anxiety still coming up, and
Yeah.
I'll still be okay.
Yeah.
But it is still hard.
Yes.
It's still hard.
I struggled a lot with a lot of insecurity
Yeah.
in the beginning of our relationship.
Yes.
Things that I really thought that I had dealt with.
Yes. That's where I'm at. I'm like, you get to this place in your healing, especially when you're on your own. Because I did the same thing. I was like, it's just me and my daughter.
Good.
We're doing this thing. And I was doing, so I still am, but I was doing so good. It's in this great place, this perfect place. And then you meet someone, and it's like a bomb goes off inside of you. And I'm like, I'm not insecure. Why do I feel insecure? I'm not an anxious person anymore. Why do I feel anxious? I'm not, fearful. Why am I suddenly fearful?
Because what's happening is all of these things that you healed on your own, you are now being given the opportunity, because it's easy. I hate that word. It is a different healing when it's just you than when it's you in relationship, because you figured that out solo. Now you get to figure that out in relationship, right?
Yeah.
It's just like with the abandonment stuff, right? Like when you're single and something feels icky, or you don't trust it, or you don't want to be a part of it, you can pack up and go home because it's your own house. You can ask someone to politely leave, or in my case, not so politely, right? You can invite people out the front door.
Yeah.
When you're in relationship with someone, you still feel all of those same things, but now you have to do it and navigate a relationship.
Yeah.
And navigate other children.
Yeah.
And navigate a new living space. And navigate money. And all of a sudden, it's almost like the universe literally going, okay, sis, put your money where your mouth is. You did all this work. You're
Prove
calm. You're at peace. You're so cute. You're not insecure anymore. You're not an anxious person anymore. Show me. Right?
Yeah.
Because that really is what it feels like.
Yeah.
But that's how it works, because look what I found. So we go through all that and we hit our stride and things are good. And then business tanked and money got really hard. And it's like, really? Really? Did all that other stuff, went through it, and finally we were like, oh, we've got this figured out. But now we get to do it together.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, we're back in this place where like things are rocking and rolling and we're figuring it out. And I'm like, shh, don't say that too loud. He's like, babe, shh. You're going to tempt the universe.
Right.
We're good.
Yeah.
Just don't say anything.
Yeah.
Peace and quiet.
Yeah.
2 weeks. Peace and quiet. But that's how it works. And every layer, you trust yourself more.
Yeah, so true.
You have more faith in your ability.
So true.
And then you get to have faith in y'all's ability together.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
You made this video. I watched it the other day. Within like 30 seconds of your page, I was like, like just sobbing. And it's funny. I'm not even in a relationship right now. I'm just kind of tipping my toes back into the water of love and life and dating. And so it's just funny because I'm like,
you're pre-planning for the pre-planned.
Yes.
Plan,
Yes. So that, but you posted this video and it was you and your partner holding hands, and it said, and I can't remember verbatim, but it said, life gave you people who didn't show up for you. So the universe gave you someone that would move mountains for you, or something along those lines. And that just,
now I have goosebumps.
That hit me so hard because I'm so ready to receive that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so open to it, to receive that. And I know that person exists for me, but I also know I'm okay on my own at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in a beautiful place with that. But it's still hard to even believe it can exist.
Mm-hmm.
But I see you and I know that it does.
It does.
'Cause you found it.
Yeah.
I have friends who have found it. So I know it's there. I know it's real. I know it can happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still learning to navigate the desire for that while also being content where I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even know where I'm going with that. But
I think that's the divine timing piece, right?
yeah.
For me, I wouldn't get on dating apps. I didn't want to do that.
Yeah, I don't either.
And everybody's like, well, but that's just how it's done now. And I wasn't interested.
Yeah, same.
And I had people who would say to me, well, the universe isn't just going to send them to your living room. But why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
If that's really what I'm manifesting, why isn't that
Yeah.
what's going to happen? Or I had some friends who were big time social media influencers do a whole podcast about me, and they were like, she's just got to understand she's going to have to kiss a lot of frogs. And I'm like, I had 4 kids with a frog. I don't
want
to kiss
to
any more
anymore.
frogs.
And that's exactly me too. I'm like, I don't want to kiss any more frogs. I'm done with
Kissed
that.
enough frogs.
Yes. Like I've literally said to God, like, listen, I don't have any of that left in me right now.
Yeah.
It's that phase of my life of trying is really just completed.
Yeah.
I need the real thing, and I don't want anything until it's the real thing. So if it's from you, I need to know it's from you, and it needs to be here because I can't handle another disappointment.
But what I realized is that meant I couldn't go looking for it.
Yeah.
I had to be patient. And it was so hard. And when it first happened and he messaged and was like, I think I'm starting to have feelings for you. And I was like, what? No.
Retract your statement now.
He's like, you okay? I don't know. I don't know what I am, And then it was like, do I even? Because I mean, up until that point, he was married. You know what I mean?
Right. It wasn't
and
even.
so like it wasn't even a thought
Yeah.
for me. And so
Yeah.
I had to sit with it for a couple days. Like, can I? Do I? And I had made a commitment to myself and to the girls. Like, if it doesn't enhance what we've already built, do I want it?
Right.
If it doesn't contribute to what I've created, it doesn't fit.
Yeah.
And let me be real honest with you. I moved the girls to Texas, and for the beginning there, it did not contribute.
Ooh.
And it did not enhance.
Ooh.
And that was hard.
I bet.
That was hard because there were times where it was like, did I make a mistake?
Ooh.
Did I make a mistake? This is the one time I've tried in 4 years. Did I make a mistake? And the truth is, and the reality was, the answer was no. That was my fear. That was the story. You don't know how to pick them. Men are trash.
Bingo.
Right?
Yep.
So I got to look at that again. And I got to compare those stories to the man that he is and the man that he was. And things like, we don't get it perfect all the time. But, you know, for example, I went to him with something that had happened periodically. You know, it wasn't even something worth fighting over, but it was something that was really starting to irritate me. And I said, hey, I'm not trying to start a fight with you. But when XYZ happens, this is how it makes me feel. No, you have to do this. Right. You must stop doing that. Just when this happens, this is how it makes me feel. He stopped that behavior.
Wow.
That's a green flag.
That is a green flag.
We talk a lot about red flags, right?
Yep.
We never talk about green flags. So it takes a lot for him to raise his voice. He doesn't ever call names. You know what I mean? Like things that other people are like, well, duh. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Because that's what relationships have been for me in the past.
Yep.
You know? My girls love him. They love him. And they tell people outside of he and I, without us in the room, without us prompting them, he's the best thing that ever happened to us. Oh. You know?
My heart.
My younger two, the twins, completely without me knowing and separate from me even being in the room, asked him a week ago if they could call him dad.
Oh.
And they came to me afterwards and they were like, we asked Thomas if we could call him dad and he said yes. And I was like, and so, you know, I had a conversation with the older girls about it. And I told them there's no expectations. There's zero pressure. But this is what your sisters have decided. And I just wanted to let you know. And they were like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
That's so sweet.
You know, that's how you know. You're not going to know on the first date. You're not going to know in the first month. You'll know when things get hard and you see how he acts. You'll know when things get dicey and you need him to show up for you.
And he does.
And he does. But you also have to be sure that you're speaking your needs to him. Mm-hmm. I had to be really careful in the beginning that I didn't test him because I wanted to test him. You know?
I can relate to that a little bit without even realizing it sometimes.
Yeah, but like I wanted to push him away and see if he would fight for me. I wanted to run and see if he would chase me.
This is too real.
That's not what grown-ups do, right?
No,
that's not what a woman secure in herself who trusts herself does in a relationship. And did I want to build that foundation into the relationship with the man that I was going to break my celibacy for?
Right. Facts. Whew, that is a word right there.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? So for the women listening who haven't found that yet,
mm-hmm.
and maybe they're at the beginning stages of their healing
mm-hmm.
on their own.
Yeah.
What is the foundation, do you think, of beginning that season where you, how do I say this? Because I did it, but I didn't have a guide.
Yeah.
I just figured it out. So
Yeah.
I'm still kind of trying to learn what that was and how it looked.
Yeah.
Where does it start? Where does healing start when you finally reach that place where you realize the patterns are not the patterns I want in my life anymore, and I want to become the kind of woman that can be in a healthy relationship again?
I think it's different for different people. It can start with something as simple as reading a book and having an aha moment. For some of us, it takes the literal world ending, right? I think listening to podcasts and joining communities are huge.
Yeah.
But I think really it's about your willingness to be open to listening, not just to other people, but to yourself.
Yeah,
I think
trusting your own voice.
Well, and recognizing that we are not taught to trust our own knowing. In fact, we're taught not to. We're told we're overly emotional, overly sensitive, overreacting. I mean, the world gaslights us, and we gaslight ourselves.
Yeah, 100%.
Right?
Yeah.
I think it's being willing to own your part.
Yeah.
Accountability is huge, even if the only piece you need to own is that you kept showing up for it.
That's good.
You know?
That's good.
I think we put so much weight on relationship.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm so smart and beautiful and successful and funny and strong and loving and hold the best space and blah, 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 why can't I find a partner? Because it's not time.
Right. I'm learning that I've been thinking about this a lot as I'm starting to open my heart up and my life up to the idea of someone else again. Because I really didn't want to until recently. Like, I really was just kind of like, forget all that. Right. I don't need it. I don't want it. I'm really good. I'm so peaceful right now.
Right.
But in that and now still, I'm looking at my life and I'm going, I really romanticized romantic relationships my whole life. So to the point where I didn't see the beautiful love stories that were constantly surrounding me with the people that were already in my life.
Yeah.
And I love that I'm finally at that place in my life where I'm looking at my friendships as like the true love stories that I wanted and needed.
Yes.
And just even work friendships. And I have so many love stories in my life right now that are beautiful and fulfilling and amazing. And so it's like, we don't need romantic relationship, right? It's a gift, I feel like now.
It's like an enhancement.
Yes.
Because you should always date yourself.
Yeah.
Lizzo has that song Soulmate.
Yeah.
I used to blare that all of the time. Like, I'm my own soulmate.
I love that.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like I told you earlier. You've got you.
And
that's all you need. No matter who comes and who goes. You've got you.
That's right.
But a lot like you, like, my soulmates are my best friends.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that he isn't also a soulmate.
Yeah.
He certainly is.
But he's just a part of the puzzle.
But he is just a part of the puzzle. You know, I have growing old plans with my girlfriends that he's invited to participate in. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But, you know, it's like you said, like, I'm madly in love with my best friends.
Yes.
They carried me and the girls through the darkest times.
Amen.
And that doesn't minimize what I have with him.
Right.
Because he is my partner. He's who I'm going to spend the rest of my life with.
Yeah.
But there's a meme, and it's funny. And I sent it to my best friend, got married last June, and I sent it to her fiance, and it said, basically, we're not sure if you're going to be at the wedding, but I am definitely going to be at the wedding. It's like
facts.
Yes.
I love that so much. And I think it's important.
So focusing on that.
Yeah.
You're madly in love with your daughter.
Yeah, I am. And I'm learning to be madly in love with myself not in a weird, selfish, I'm the greatest thing that ever happened way, but Yeah. I and my friends, like
Mhm.
I saw one of my best friends last night, and she's the one since we were little girls, like that just has me.
Mhm.
And it's just like that's so beautiful to me. And I just thought about that all morning and how gorgeous that relationship is. And but
Well, and you love your friends for their quirks,
yeah,
and they love you
Yeah.
for your quirks,
Yeah.
and they have seen you in a gorgeous ball gown, and they have seen you in sweats and a messy bun.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And they love you when you're happy and bubbly, and they love you when you're ugly crying on the bathroom floor, right?
Yeah.
That's
Love.
that's love.
Yeah.
That's love.
It sure is.
And you get to love yourself when you're like that too.
yeah.
That's what I had to figure out.
Yeah.
It's really easy for people to love you when you are calm and you are easy to get along with and you're compliant and you look happy and you're always telling them yes. It's the ones who love you when you are like losing your mind
Yes.
and, you know, hysterically laughing and hysterically crying at the same time, right? Those are the ones.
Yeah.
And then being able to love yourself that way, because I never could have even let him love me
Yeah.
if I didn't first love me, because I would have been trying to hide those
Yeah.
things
Yes.
from
Oh,
him,
that's so good.
you know?
That's so good and so true. You can't be your full self until you really love your full self.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's the hardest work.
it is. So you have a community.
I do.
Can you talk about that and where people can find that and what that entails?
So it's called Connection to Soul, a Return to Self.
Mm.
And it is a community of women. I do a lot of one-on-one coaching. I work a lot in the inner child healing, trauma-informed space. But what I found was, for several reasons, we are wounded in community, and so we need to heal in community.
Yeah, that's
right.
good.
But women needed a space that was safe and secure so that they could come and they could talk about the things they were experiencing. Whether it's kids or husbands or breakups or jobs or whatever.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different aspects to it. We work a lot and talk a lot about nervous system regulation. I bring in experts to teach breath work, to talk about the nervous system. We talk about food and the way food affects your body, and we talk about getting enough sleep or drinking enough water, Ashley.
I'm doing all the other things right. That's just my one area of struggle.
But we talk and I teach finding that calm center in yourself.
Yeah.
And how not only to find it, but to step into it and stay there and then expand it out into the world around you.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about the moon and the planets and astrology. We talk about the cycles of nature, because our bodies are nature and we have cycles within ourselves. We talk about different spiritual practices. It's really just about sisterhood.
I love that so much. Where can women that are watching this now find that?
They can connect with me on Instagram.
Okay.
It's at Kat, Kat_Tag.
Okay.
And
TAGUE?
UE. Yep.
Okay.
And there's a link tree there.
Okay,
It
perfect.
goes directly to it.
And obviously in this, I'll be posting your stuff too. Are you tagging you and all those things so they can find you that way as well? But oh, this was so healing. This was like almost kind of like a counseling session,
Right?
but in the best way possible.
We didn't cry. That's
I
the
know.
best
I
part.
almost did a couple times,
know,
but I was
me
like,
too.
hold it together. You didn't wear waterproof eyeliner today. But oh, thank you so much for this. I so appreciate you, and I feel like so connected to you and your story. Like it feels so similar to mine.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking at where you are now, and I think this I'm headed in that same direction, and that's really inspiring.
Just don't stop.
I won't.
Okay.
I won't. And I hope that you won't either if you're listening and watching this now. But thank you for listening in. This is another episode of This Is Where We Heal. And don't forget to check out Kat Tag
Mm-hmm.
and just get all the inspiration that you can.